I will show you 3 incredible and super helpful techniques that will change the way you work with watercolor forever. And if you have ever ruined watercolor pieces, don't throw them away yet, because in a few minutes I'll show you how to turn these around and make stunning artworks out of them. The only catch is that for these techniques you would need to use oil pastels. Hi, I'm Leila, a professional artist. Welcome to my art studio and this channel. Check that you have subscribed, because that will help you to bookmark and you'll be able to come back here anytime you need some inspiration, or maybe you need a helping hand with your project. So then you can just leave a comment under any of the videos and hopefully I'll be able to get back to you and give you a helping hand. Also remember to share this video with your friends, family, or anyone who you think is interested in the subject. Maybe you've got a group of friends who are learning how to draw and paint together, so that way this video can benefit as many people as possible. Because remember, what goes around comes around. By you sharing it, it means that someone else will share something and you might come across new information, and that way we can create more creativity and even more fun for everyone. So remember to share. And the soft oil pastel set of 48 pastels that I'll be using in this video was sent to me by Lightwish. They did not sponsor this video in any way, and the links that I'll leave under the video are just for your information. They're not affiliate links and I do not earn anything from them. I am using these soft oil pastels for the first time, so I will give you my first impressions. Well, the box was really loved by my cat. My cat did not come off this box all throughout me testing out the pastels. And just like it says on the box, they are soft oil pastels. So they are really lovely and create a really nice texture. Colors are quite lovely as well, a big variety here. 48. You also get 4 extra whites in the set as a plus to the one that's already there, because that's usually the first color that runs out, as you guys probably know, in most pastels. Because they are so soft, they are very easy to blend. In fact, they almost feel like blending, those other kind of soft pastels, chalk pastels that I've used before. I've shown you tutorials on that as well. They're super smooth and colors can blend seamlessly into each other. Absolutely perfect for if you're wanting to do the background or anything like this. This technique would be just great. Also, they build up quite a bit of texture. So if you would like to create that sort of a stacked on look where you get a little bit of the 3D feel, that would work well as well. Another great thing with oil pastels is that you can always scrape them back, so you can create texture by removing them from the surface of your artwork. I always love the possibilities that materials like that can create, because you can apply them and create your textures and patterns in that way, but also remove them and create more patterns and textures in that way as well. There are so many different techniques and things that you can do with oil pastels. If you guys are interested, please let me know and I can film a separate video focusing specifically on the techniques of oil pastels. But now let's get into the core of this tutorial. To show you the techniques, I'm going to use this calendar that was also sent to me by Lightwish, and is made out of watercolor paper with dates printed on them. It's a 12-month calendar printed on pure cotton 100% 300 GSM paper. These techniques that I'm going to show you are going to go in the order of the most well-known ones and most commonly used to the less well-known, but just as useful, if not more. Now, the first technique is one of the most amazing ways to make sure that there are certain areas where watercolor does not stick. And I'll show you what I mean. In this technique, we start with pastels and then apply watercolor paint. And here you can see that you can use not just white color. White color will preserve the whiteness of the paper, but you can do this with any other color. And these areas will stay put no matter how much water you apply on the paper. Now you can see that my artwork is a little bit upright, but I have turned it upside down to help the direction of the water flow, because gravity can do a lot of good stuff for us here. And just layering the color to make it more intense in the areas of faraway bush kind of an area. Now I'm going to use a much lighter color and go over where I have applied the oil pastels. You can see how now I don't really need to worry about reserving some white areas for, the highlights of the snow. Also, pastel here creates this really beautiful snow-like texture because the actual paper has a little bit of that texture too. So it's the kind of effect that would be really hard, if not impossible, to create with blocking medium or any other useful materials that you might be used to using with watercolor. Another beauty of this technique is that you don't need to worry if you want to create runny watercolor effects where you're working wet on wet or whatever, and you're deciding to leave some areas quite light. You don't need to worry about that anymore because the oil pastel is already taking care of that for you. Now that all this is dry, I can go ahead and add other colors, details to bring out the composition. I'm going to use my really thin brush, the liner brush, and with a mix of brown and blue, I'm going to apply certain lines to mimic the tree shapes. If you would like to know the specifics of how to create really thin lines with a specific look that you want to, whether they're more control, whether they're free-flowing, I have recently posted a video deconstructing that very scary subject for so many of you. So if you're interested, you can always go over there and check out that video. Remember, now you can pre-purchase videos separately, or you can subscribe to Patreon and you will be able to unlock all the videos there for yourself. Very useful, very informative, also very relaxing. So make sure to go over there, check it out, and who knows, you might be winning an artwork next, depending on the tier that you have chosen. So let's quickly recap. Where can this technique be useful? In the situation where you want to reserve white paper, or you would like to deposit a color, in the situation where you want to create that specific texture that looks great for when you're working on light or when you're working on snow. So pros and cons of this technique. Number one, you have to apply oil pastels before you actually do any kind of work on your paper and make sure it is 100% dry. Number two, which can be difficult as well with this technique, is that once you apply your pastel, you cannot paint over it. So if I change my mind now and decide that this roof has to be bright red, I cannot achieve that look anymore. That's it. You can't change your mind. So you have to be quite careful in the first place where you place them. But the pros, you can see how quickly and how easily I could create this without any other ingredients, just oil pastels and watercolor. And the work could go so much faster because I knew that certain areas were already reserved. So that's technique number one. And I'm loving working on this paper. This is beautiful paper. I think I've worked on something from Lightwish before on the paper, and I remember just thinking how great it was. This is just that same quality paper, absolutely beautiful. I love how it grabs onto paint. And but anyway, if you guys would like to know what I think about these materials, oil pastels and the calendar, I will have a little space at the end of the video, so you can watch that as well, and I'll give you my thoughts on this. Okay, now this technique number 2, and this technique works a little bit differently. This technique happens when you are wanting to create something that will be pulled to you from the background. And I'll show you in a minute what I mean by that. And first, of course, you want to recreate your sketch with the pencil very quickly of what you want to work on, and then apply water or do anything that you would regularly do when you're working with watercolor. So for me, for this sketch, I've dampened the paper with just water, then I've created larger areas of wash of the color, and then I'm going to create reasonable detail on the back and the midground as well. I'm also applying salt because this technique will allow me to create whatever I want without having to worry about reserving areas or anything like this. But I will show you in a minute. So now I'm going to brush the salt off, and I'm going to carry on working with watercolor. So my second layer will also be in watercolor. You can resort to your regular techniques, whatever it is that you like working with, whether it's wet on wet, then you can carry on applying water and working with that. Or if you are like me and you like working in layers, then you can just reapply another layer of paint. Now you can see that most of my background and midground is done. Now I have the bird, my main character. I'm going to do an underpainting for it in watercolor, but I'm not going to get into the details, especially into the texture and things like that. Now is the crucial part. I'm going to let it dry. It has to be 100% dry before I do the next step. I'm going to use oil pastels over the dry watercolor, and it will do few things for my painting. Number one, it will create more depth by texturizing certain things on the foreground. The other things instantly move a little bit further back to the background, so you're creating the depth in your art. And number two, you're creating a point of interest. Point of interest is somewhere where, you know, your eye just grabs onto first. Have you seen those artworks where things seem quite beautiful, and anywhere you look, you see intricate details and beautiful colors, but as a whole, the painting just doesn't work? And that's usually because there is no point of interest. There should be one little thing that almost like a pen holds the whole painting together, and oil pastels in this case will help me create that. And you can see how layering these up creates that texture that really takes it out of the background and really makes you notice it. You can also use other techniques with it, the oil pastel techniques, where you can scrape things back and create even more texture and detail if you need to. And you can keep going and adding, working with more detail, and you can stop at any time that you feel it is where and what you want it to be. And I'm sure that many of you like working on different scale works as well. These are tiny, these are A5 little things, you know. So if you're working on larger scale, it's even more fun to work with oil pastels on larger objects. Now, I'm going to add a little bit more of the oil pastel, just a little bit here on the branch as well, but right here at the front by the bird. and anywhere else you want to bring this closer to you, like this branch here, I'm just going to grab a little bit of this color. And I'm just going to texturize all of this. Now, the pros and cons of this technique here. Pros, of course, you can see they're right there for you to observe. You can create very intense areas in your artwork and introduce a little bit of a different technique. Like, for example, the texture that I've created here on the bird, I can't really create that texture with watercolor, and by applying oil pastels over the soft washes, you really can create that space illusion, you know, the distance, the point of interest, where the first area that you would see is this, and then your eye travels through. So these are really important keys when you're, you know, not like what I'm doing here, just doing little quick sketches, but when you're actually working on an artwork that you want to, I don't know, frame, sell, or gift to someone. These things become very, very important. Now, cons is that once you've applied this, you can't really go back and undo this. Not that you can undo this much with watercolor, but you can't apply any kind of paint over it. The only thing you can do is just keep layering your pastels or scraping them off and relayering them again. So this is the con, but I guess just like with any other technique, you know, there's always a plus and always a minus. Okay, I just wanted to add little flies in here, and let's give this little guy a fly in his beak. So, as I said, you cannot go over the areas here, so I'll just show you. See, I've got the same color that I did there, and if I'm going over, there's nothing, the paint just doesn't stick. But any other areas where the paint is still just watercolor, I can go and rework these. Okay, and now I am very excited because it's time for the technique number 3, and I think this is probably one of the most valuable techniques, especially for those of you who sometimes struggle with watercolor. A lot of the times when people transition from using acrylics or oils or gouache or something else, some other medium that you use in quite a thick way and you can paint over it, and you go into watercolor and you find that, you know, with watercolor, it doesn't give you too many second chances. So if you do something that you really don't like, a lot of the times it's kind of that's it. And you end up sort of throwing your work away. But this technique is the best technique to save your watercolor artworks that you are not very happy with. Sometimes what can happen is that you are working along and some areas of your artwork are turning out just how you want them to be, and then some areas of your artwork are just and you look at it and all you can see is that area where you feel that you have screwed up. So this technique is for that time. What you can do is, once you don't like your work, you leave it, you stop working on it, you leave it to dry. Another tip I'm going to give you is that leave it at least overnight or turn it away so that if you are going past it, you're not looking at it. Then maybe a few hours later, or even better the next day, you pull the work out and you have a look at it with a fresh gaze. Next day you might actually like your work, or what can happen is that you might know exactly what the problem with it is. But if you still see that there is a problem and you can't fix it, because with watercolor, the more of it you place on, the worse it will be, really. My suggestion is using oil pastels to go over the areas. And I will show you on this little artwork that I'm creating, and I'm purposefully stuffing up the foreground. This is the area that usually gets overworked quite a bit. You know, on the back, you're going very smoothly, you're trusting the water to take care of your washes. but then on the foreground you start to get into too much brushwork, sometimes too much detail. Now, oil pastels have this ability to, even when it's overworked, it doesn't have to look stiff. I'll show you a few techniques that you can use with this. I'm placing a lighter color first, so it doesn't matter what you have painted here, I'm going to place the lighter color because I'm going to scratch into it and I want for the lighter color to be revealed, and mix it in with my finger. It kind of already looks a little bit better. I'm liking this a little bit more. Now, the cool thing about this, because oil pastels, especially these soft oil pastels, they have really great coverage. So even if I would have had some, I don't know, black spots on the foreground, I would be able to minimize it by using this. So this is here a little bit on sort of a mid-ground, but I want to make that connection between these two techniques. Okay, now I feel like I've created quite a bit of a layer, because you can kind of tell by when you're smudging it that there is a nice film of this material is on there. So now I'm going to go in and use darker colors. And already I'm applying it in the actual movement of the grass. Just like with watercolor, remember you want to use a variety of colors. There isn't really a really deep green in this set somehow. I think this is sort of the darkest there is there. So now I'm going to kind of not completely smudge it out, but sort of just soften it a bit. I'm going to grab like a scratching tool. I've got this little sort of like a dull needle kind of a thing. I think that's for making holes in the leather. You can always use something, anything that's got like a sharp little thing, you know, like this. Like this if you want thinner, multiple lines. This is kind of the look I'm going for in this one. The beauty of this is that even if you do overwork it, you take it too far, it's not a problem, because you can always go in with your finger and give it a bit of a smudge to get rid of those lines, or you can always go over and add a little bit more and pretty much start again. Now I can always just leave it like that, or I can add lots of flowers. I mean, it is a field after all. And remember, because of the perspective, you want to have smaller flowers going further back, and larger flowers closer to the foreground. We can add few blue little flowers. And maybe some red ones here and there. And you can always go in and put some grass over the flowers, because sometimes some grass bits are taller than flowers. So you can create that very easily by just scratching back. Just don't forget to wipe your scratching tool, because you will end up creating mess everywhere. These are soft oil pastels and they are very, very soft. So what do you guys think? You remember what it was like when it was just watercolor, and you see how I could not only go over what I have created there previously, you can't see any of those areas, but also because of the softness of these soft oil pastels, I can seamlessly blend this material into watercolor without it creating very rigid, very sharp edges or anything like this. Now, this can be done on anything. Imagine you are painting landscape or seascape, for example, right? And there's something on the front or in the back or in the sky, anything really that you have gone over too many times, or it's dried too quickly and you didn't have enough time to work on it when it was wet. Or sometimes if the paper is wet and you move it around, you can create these blooms and things. And sometimes they're absolutely perfect if you're working on florals or you want to create that texture. Some people call it like a cauliflower. But if you don't want it, if it's in the sky and you want it to be perfectly smooth, but you absolutely love the rest of your artwork, and you sort of look down here, you love it, but you hate it up here, something like this can 100% save your watercolor. So if you want me to show you more examples of it, please comment, and I'd be happy to show you more ways that you can save your watercolors if you have ruined them or you think you've ruined them. Sometimes they actually look great, but the artist feels that it's not what they wanted to. So the other person would be looking at it and saying, "This is brilliant, that's great." And the artist would be like, I hate it, it's not what I wanted." So if that's the case, you can always correct, and you can always rework, and you can do it in a way that it's not going to look too much, it's not going to look too overworked, it's going to enhance your watercolor. Okay, so a quick recap of the techniques. You can use your oil pastels. Actually, this technique can work well with soft oil pastels or even your regular or hard, whatever they're called, oil pastels as well. Even crayons can do this job, but crayons, I think, probably not as good as the actual pastels. This is applying it before you do any kind of painting. What it does is that it reserves the areas for you, and you don't need to worry. You can create washes, you can go crazy, but these areas will stay the way they are. It also helps you to pinpoint your objects, because sometimes you do a pencil sketch and you are painting over it and you can't see the lines. So if you mark up some of these areas that you already know what colors you want, it will always stay put. You will always know what's going on here and what's going on there. So this technique has those benefits. Just remember, you cannot paint over these areas once they've applied. That's it. If you need to rework them, you would have to go back to using oil pastels again. So that's important to remember. Now, another technique was when you can enhance your watercolor by creating a focal point. So you are working on everything in really soft colors, but then you want something to be grabbing your attention without making it super strong or screaming colors or whatever. Then something like this works great, because you can create texture, you can create that heaviness, that three-dimensionality if you want to, with oil pastels. Again, something like this, crayons will do a horrible job. Don't go for that. Leave it for the kids. But oil pastels, you can use both. Soft and hard would work quite well for this technique as well. And of course, this technique where you want to seamlessly merge something into your watercolor because you want to cover over areas that you don't like, whether you had an accident there or if you maybe reworked it too much. For this technique, I would suggest to use specifically soft oil pastels because of that softness, because you can smudge them with your fingers and things like that. And as I said, this is so versatile and it can save any artwork without changing its feel. So if you sometimes there are ways to save your artwork by completely changing it, blocking out the background with some other, like acrylic or something like this, or but then it becomes very different from what you intended. This will allow you to fix your watercolor without losing that feel of softness. Okay, so this is where this technique is great. Okay, now as I promised, what can I tell you about the products that I've actually used in this tutorial? Now, the pastel, it's great. Lots of different colors, very soft, very creamy. Really, it is wonderful. The one thing that I can point out is that there are some colors that I sort of felt were missing, like a deep green. And even black sort of has almost like this gray haze to it. So that the real depth is kind of a little bit missing for me. But then again, I could go around those kind of situations, like for example here, where I've used a bit of darker brown with the green to make it a little bit darker. But you see, if I wanted to go even deeper, I would probably have to use black. But even black, it has that softness to it. It's almost like deep charcoal versus black. So yeah, those are the kind of things to look for if you like working with very rich colors. For watercolor, probably is fine, because you don't really use watercolor in super intense, although some people do. So it's up to you to decide. That's why these reviews are great, because I'm just telling you and using it and showing you, and you can make up your own mind if this is something that's not going to bother you at all, or if it's something that is absolutely a deal breaker. What I really love as well is that they have 4 extra whites, which is it's quite lovely for them to think of artists that use a lot of white, and you do use a lot of it, way more than you do other colors. Especially with these ones, I can see them being absolutely beautiful on black paper. See here, I've tried them on gray paper. In the artworks, I've tried them on white paper. But it's they would perform beautifully. They've got really lovely coverage, very nice texture. They have almost a feel of oil paint because they're so soft. I'm pretty sure you probably could even grab a brush and paint with them. Again, if you guys would like me to go in depth into the textures that you can create, specifically like a tutorial on soft oil pastels, let me know and I'll be able to show you so many ways you can use them on their own. It's a very great media to have on hand. If you are thinking of getting this, for example, for children, especially if they're quite young, how a lot of parents sort of usually get crayons and things like that for their kids, or maybe you're a teacher at school or something like that, I would probably stay away from these for really young kids because they're super soft. So if I put on quite a bit of pressure, I'm just going to crumble the whole thing. So you really want someone who can work with soft touch if they need to. So, again, up to you to sort of figure out if, say, for example, your children are up for it or not. Another thing that I want to say as well is that these are also quite messy because of that softness. A lot of art materials are messy, don't get me wrong, but the softness of these ones makes them a little bit more on that side, so they can spread even just by being on your fingers and then you touching something. Like I had to actually wipe my table a couple of times here so that I don't transfer it all over the place. But working with them, I absolutely loved working with them. They're almost like velvety silk, so very, very lovely. Now, another thing that I was reviewing in this video is this Lightwish calendar. Now, first of all, I want to say what a great idea. I absolutely love this idea. I didn't even know it was coming in the package. The person just included it in there. It's absolutely lovely. And I think it will be perfect for anyone who is wanting to create a cool gift for someone. So this is an idea. Also, each sheet has a quote from an artist. Like, see, this one has Pablo Picasso, one quote here, another quote here, and they all do. So this is Leonardo da Vinci here. The painter has the universe in his mind and hands. You know, like all of these, Degas. So they're all very, very. It's very interesting. It's lovely. It is probably quite a lovely present for someone who paints as well. So giving it to them blank, or if you're one of those creative people and you want to make a very special gift, or even for yourself, or if you're like a teacher, for example, you know, you can do this with your class and they can decorate, and then they'll be waiting with anticipation for the next month because maybe this is the one that they worked on or something like this. I absolutely love the idea. I also 100%, I'm just in love with this paper. I even sent an email to the person that was in touch with me, and I've asked them if they make paper like this on its own, or if they do maybe sketchbooks. I would absolutely love to see this paper maybe in like, I don't know, like A4, A3 sheets just on its own. I absolutely love it. I mean, I love it even over Arches paper, you guys. This is it's you can create really soft washes on here, and when you look at it, it's almost like painted on fabric. And I guess, you know, it is 100% cotton, but I mean, lots of other brands are 100% cotton. So I will see if this brand, maybe if they would like to send me some other stuff to try and show you, because if they do have this paper just on its own, I would really love to, you know, show that to you guys as well. You know, it's just to make sure it's not a fluke. It's not just this product that is so beautiful. I mean, I almost want to work on the other side as well. it's yeah, and the way the salt worked on it, it's just, oh, like, I see this paper and it makes me want to paint on it now that I've tried this. So again, Lightwish, if you're listening, I really hope that there are sets of this just on its own, or maybe sketchbooks. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope that this video helped you a lot with, you know, some issues maybe you're having. Remember, always leave comments under the video, ask me questions. Just remember that if you are stuck with your artwork or anything like this, you can always just drop me a line. I'll see if I can help you, or maybe there's a video that I can send you a link to that will help you with your problem. Other than that, if you'd like a lot of help, like if you'd like someone to actually help you and tell you step by step how to learn things better, or you'd like to maybe win things like this, all of these little sketches that I do here, I post them out to my patrons. So make sure to go on Patreon and check it out. And remember, you'll be supporting this channel as well, you know, because I have to upgrade things, cameras, microphones, everything that I wouldn't actually be doing if I wasn't filming for you guys. So remember, your support is very, very important to this channel and to me as well. So I hope you guys have a lovely day. Remember to share this video with anyone who you think might benefit from it. And I absolutely look forward to seeing you again in the next video. See you soon, guys. Bye-bye.